Hey everybody, Freddy here with another video. This is the continuation of the Azure Monitor or Azure Observability series. If you haven't watched the other videos, I would encourage you to do so. If you haven't done so, please subscribe to the channel. And if you have any comments, please leave them in the section down below. So let's go ahead and get to it. So just a quick recap on what we have seen so far. There's a cycle of data that is created in observability. The first one is generate. One of the things that we said is that when you generate data, it can be either from an infrastructure device like a VM or an AKS system like a container, or you can also generate things from an application. Like if you have an Azure app service, you can generate data that goes into what we consider a database, something that keeps the data in one location so you can query the data. What type of data is that? Metrics, logs, traces, things like that that go inside that database. We're going to continue with that, and at this point we're going to be looking at other things that could generate data. One of the main things I think that is crucial to understand is Entra ID. Let's go ahead and look at the Entra ID and what kind of logs we can capture and how we can send those to a log analytics workspace. Remember, the log analytics workspace is this database or database-like area where all this data is going to be stored, and from there we're going to be able to generate some insights, we're going to be able to generate some reports, we can even generate alerts, which we'll get to. Right now we're just in that first phase of generate. So let me go ahead and jump into the portal and show you what I'm talking about. Okay, so now we're in the portal again, and one of the things that we have here is the Log Analytics Workspace. This is the Log Analytics workspace that we created in the previous video. If you haven't seen that video, I would recommend you see it so you can see how you create a Log Analytics Workspace. Again, this one is in the West US 3 region, and one of the things that you got to look at is the data that is being stored in this log or in this workspace. But the way that we look at that is we can go into logs. This is the way that you can query this data. But before we go into this querying the data, let's go ahead and look at the different things. Like under settings here, you have this area that says tables. Again, remember I said this is more of like a database-like. So it is kind of like a database. It has tables. So when you look at the tables, you can see that it has a lot of different information. It has a lot of different tables. You have an alert table, you have an Azure activity table, you have an event, you have an insights, metrics, operations, perf, syslog. Again, this has a lot more that you have seen, and that the reason is because we're looking at Windows systems and Linux systems as well. But let's go ahead and look at this really quick. So it has a table name, it has a type of table, Azure table. As you can see, they're all Azure tables because they were created by Azure. The plan is analytics. The interactive retention in this case is 30 days. All of them are set to 30 days except this one. The usage is set to 90 days. And the Azure activity is set to 90 days as well. The total retention is 30 days, 30 days, 90 days. So what is the difference between interactive retention and total retention? As you can see, it's the same right now. The reason this is different is because if we look at these little three dots here, let's go ahead and look at, let's just look at this Azure activity table. Here you have an option to manage table. Let's go ahead and look at that. Let's go ahead and look at the manage table. Here you have the interactive retention. The interactive retention is, this is the period that your data will be available for interactive queries. So this is the data that you can query. But there's also the total retention period, which is a period of the archive as well. You can archive this data. The difference between the interactive retention and the total retention is that the amount of money that you pay for each of these areas. The interactive retention is what I would consider hot data that is right there ready for you to query. The total retention is data that is in archive mode. Let's just say that we are going to change this to 30 days. So the interactive retention is 30 days, but the total retention is going to be 90 days. So now if you notice, the interactive retention is the blue and the archive period is the orange. So now if we save this, now what's going to happen is if it's invalid, the minimum allowed is 90 days. Okay, so this specific table says that the minimum allowed value is 90 days or above. So this one, let's just say that is 90 days interactive retention, and we're going to set it to 120 days of total retention. So in other words, 3 months and 4 months. Again, we can save that. You know, it says that it succeeded. So now if you notice, now it says the interactive retention is 90 days and the total retention is 120 days. That's one thing that you can do. This is the way that you can control cost in Azure Log Analytics Workspace, because archive mode is cheaper than hot data, as we would consider this one. Okay, so now let's move on. This is things that you can do to make sure that you set this when you're setting up the Azure Log Analytics Workspace. This is one thing that you can control. By default, if you don't do anything, some tables will be set to 30 days, and the total retention is 30 days, unless you go in there and you change it. Again, you can set it to up to 12 years of archive. Again, is that what you want to do? That's one thing you can do, and I'll show you the other thing that you can do with these tables. Again, you can set it to 4,353 days of archive. This is a lot, right? So you can go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and close this. I'm not going to save it. But again, these are all the tables. So just wanted to point that out. This is one way that you can control cost in your Azure Log Analytics Workspace. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to look at data export. The data export function is, let's just say that you don't want to use the archive mode in the Log Analytics Workspace. What you want to do is you want to export it to maybe blob. You want to set this so that the data goes to blob, not in the archive, because blob is going to be much cheaper than if you set it to archive. You would do a new export rule. You have to give it a name. We call it FMD rule. And you say enable upon creation. Okay, so fine, do a next. The next is you have to set the source, where the data is coming from. Again, these are all the tables that are part of the Log Analytics Workspace. So what we're going to do is we're going to take, for example, the perf table, and you can select multiple tables, of course, but let's just say we're going to select the perf, maybe the event as well, just because that might have more data. And we're going to do next, and then now it's going to be the destination. Where are you going to send it? Are you going to send it to a storage account, or are you going to send it to an event hub? If you're going to send it to a storage account, typically it's for archive purposes. If you're going to send it to an event hub, typically this is if you want to set up another event. Maybe you want to send this to another monitoring system that you might have, a third-party system that you might have. So this is going to allow you to send it to that. So the subscription is going to be my subscription, and the storage account, I have no storage accounts. Wow. Okay, but you would select the storage account here, and then you review and create. So what that does is it creates, it allows you to export the data to a storage account. Now you are moving to a different level of archive. Now you're moving it to a storage account and into a blob that is going to be much cheaper for you to keep. Okay, so we're analyzing the Log Analytics Workspace. We have talked about the tables. We have talked about the data export. Usage and estimated cost is what gives you the ability to know how much you're using it, how much data you're ingesting in the last 30 days. And typically it tells you how much it's going to cost you. So for example here, the Log Analytics log data ingestion is $2.30, and monthly usage in the last 31 days is, for me, it's very, very low. But in some cases, if you have a lot of data coming in, you will see that this price starts to go up. If it starts to go up to the point that it's becoming a little bit too much, there's things that you can do. One of the things that you can do is you can buy a commitment tier. So if you're getting 100 gigabytes per day, you can select this one at a 15% discount from the pay-as-you-go pricing. Again, this one will tell you that it's 100 gigabytes per day and you're doing a commitment, so that way it's much cheaper. So it's $6,000 for 100 gigabytes. If you go over that, there's different tiers, different discount rates. The biggest is 50,000 gigabytes per day, which gives you a 36% discount. So that's the highest that you can go. Now that's one of the things that you can do. The other thing that you can do, which is not recommended really, because you're gonna miss a lot of data, is you can put a cap on how big this log analytics workspace can get. So in this case, you can put a daily cap. Right here is a daily cap that you can click on. You can turn it on and say, I only want, I don't know, 13 gigabytes per day. So once it hits that 13 gigabytes per day, it's gonna cap, it's gonna stop, and no more data is gonna be recorded into this log analytics workspace. Again, if you want to cut the cost very quickly, this is the way to do it. However, you're gonna miss a lot of data, because once it gets to this 13 gigabytes per day, it'll stop recording. So again, this may not be the option that you want to choose, but it is there, and I want to point it out that it is available for you to just put it in and make sure that that stops recording. Data retention, again, the data retention, this is for the whole log analytics workspace, not individual tables. What I showed you before is the things that you can do per table, which is much better, I think. This one is more of a global data retention for the whole log analytics workspace, which gives you 30 days minimum, and then from here you can just go up. But the minimum is 30 days in this case. And so anyway, that's another thing that you can do in your log analytics workspace. The other thing that you have is, let me go ahead and close this. We'll go back into the log analytics workspace. You can take agents and send them to the clients that you might want to monitor. This is typically for things that are not running in Azure. So if you want, so for example, if you go here into the agents, you download the Windows agent or the Linux agent, and you pretty much install it on the workstation. And when you install it, it's going to ask you for the workspace ID, and it's going to ask you for the key, and then you can just copy that and you take it to that computer. During the installation process, it's going to ask you for this, and it's going to ask you for this key. And once you do this, what it's going to do is going to link this computer to this log analytics workspace, and you're going to start seeing data coming in from that system. It can be an on-prem system. It can be a system in another cloud provider. It can be pretty much a system anywhere. As long as there is internet access and there is access to this log analytics workspace, it'll work. So that's pretty much what this is. Now, for the VMs themselves, this ones you just have to install the extension, or you just have to enable it. When you enable the logs, as I showed you before, that will do what you need to do it. You don't need to install it unless this is more of a on-prem system or another cloud provider. Okay, back into the log analytics workspace. The last thing we're going to be looking at is the data that is being recorded. Again, remember all these tables. Let's go ahead and take one table, which is this Azure Activity. Let's go ahead and remember that name, Azure Activity. Let's go ahead and copy this actually. And then we go into logs. When we go into logs, this is where you can query. There's already predefined queries that you can use. For example, the response time trend. There's a lot of pre-created queries for you. Slowest page. There's a lot of things that you have. Virtual machines. What is the data collected? There's a lot of predefined queries. We're not going to use any of those for the moment. What I'm going to show you is how you can query this log analytics workspace. So if you just type the name of the table, Azure Activity, and you say run, it'll show you whatever is in that table. No results in the last 24 hours. What about 7 days? I haven't used the systems in a little bit. What about custom? Let's say all the way since April. But again, this log analytics workspace has not been. I just created it in the videos that I did a few days ago. So there is not much information here. But this is how you create. The thing that is very nice here is that you can continue creating this query. You just put a line here, and you just start typing where, and then it gives you all this information here. For example, is billable, is contains, and then it gives you something. So right now there is nothing here, but these are the types of queries that you can do, where you can do VM, where the VM CPU utilization is greater than 80, and then this query here, you can set up a new alert. So for example, if you set up a query here that says in the table, if the CPU usage is greater than 80, you want to create a new alert. When you create new alert here, this one will set up an alert on your custom log search. As you can see, it took what I created here, and now what it gives me the option is to say, how do I want to alert? Aggregation granularity, which means how often? 5 minutes, 1 minute. So how often do I want to check? And then the next thing is that if the operator is greater than, let's say if you're looking for CPU utilization, if it's greater than 80 and it's every minute, then you want to check to see, or you want to make sure that you notify somebody. So in this case, if the CPU utilization is greater than 80 for 1 minute, then you want to take an action, and the action is, you gotta give it a name, FMD action, and then you have to be notify admin, no space. Email, you can send an email, and you can say, okay, notify admin, send it to an email, and you can save that. Now it says use action groups. Action group is a little bit easier. Quick action is if you want to just send it to one person. Action group is if you want to create an action group. Right now I don't have any action groups, but let's create one. Create an action group, and the resource group is going to be global. We're going to call it action group, and you're going to call it notify admins. The notification here is you're going to say email or SMS. Email, SMS, and then here you select what you want to do. Email or SMS. If you want to do SMS, you got to type in a phone number. If you do email, you got to type in an email. FMD user, and then I can do action. The action type is action type. I don't need to do. This is action if you want to run. If you want to use a function to do something, to reboot the VM, or to run, to do a run book, to reboot the VM, or to do something. You don't need to do anything. If you just want to notify somebody, this is all you need to do. The action, no action is necessary. Tags, if you want to do tags, and then review and create. One of the things that you have to pay attention is under the notifications. It tells you how much it's going to cost you for that notification. I think it was $3 if I remember correctly. So there is a cost for the notification, and it says let's go ahead and, so this is this is just for creation of the action group. So let's go ahead and create the action group, and creating the action group. And right here is condition, is where it tells you how much it's going to cost you. Right here, $3. Estimated monthly cost for this notification is $3. Again, the action is use action group, and it's going to use the action group that you created, which is emailing somebody, and it's going to do it based on the condition that you set up. Okay, action groups, and then details, and then here's the severity that you want it to show, the alert rule name, the description, and here is the identity, and the default is the one that it's going to use. And that's it. When you create this, again, this is creating an alert based on the log analytics query that you created. You can create any query, and you can set up an alert for any of these queries here. So how do you know which queries to use? Well, in this case, really, you can create your own queries, or you can use the queries that are here. Like I said, if you want virtual machines, there are some that are already pre-created for you. Shut down virtual machines. You can successfully shut down in the last 10 minutes, not reporting VMs. You know, there's a lot of predefined queries here that you can use. And this is already there for you, so all you need to do is run them. And it creates this here. The only thing to remember is that whatever query you have here is not going to get deleted. It's just going to be added to the bottom of this query. And if you run, it'll run everything. So make sure that you pay attention to that, so you don't end up with multiple queries and your query is not going to work. That's because you may have things that you don't want on the top. So make sure that you pay attention to those little details there. So that's pretty much what you have to do. And if you know what you're looking for, it's going to be easy, and it's going to be very nice for you to run these queries. If you don't know what queries to do, that's when insights come into the picture with Monitor Insights. Monitor Insights, what it is pretty much a system that creates queries for you, and it will run those queries, and it'll give you that insight information from the log analytics workspace, but it's going to give them to you already predefined, pre-created, and you don't have to create these queries. But you can, if you have the patience and if you have the desire to be able to do that. You have the ability to do it. All right, so that's the end of this video. I know this was a deep dive on the Log Analytics Workspace. This is part of the generate portion of the series, which is how you generate the data, how it goes into the Log Analytics Workspace, and now what do you do with it, right? So now we're going to be moving into the monitor section. So if you haven't done so, please watch the other videos, and if you haven't done so either, to subscribe to the channel, please do so as well. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.